Hello, Millennium Live listeners. I'm Connor Toohey, host of the Millennium Live podcast series, and I'm happy to be back with another great episode by one of our amazing partners. And with 4,000 breaches a year, data security is currently a broken promise. And we're here today on the podcast to talk about a company's mission, which is to reinvent data security for the way cloud-first organizations use data. And I'm extremely happy to invite to the podcast Ani Chaudhuri. He is the co-founder and CEO of Dasera. So, Ani, thank you so much for joining Millennium Live. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thanks for having us over, and it's a pleasure on our part as well.
Great. So I want to dive right in and really just talk about cybersecurity as a whole, and of course, Dasera. So, as a co-founder and the CEO, can you just give us a little brief background on Dasera, what you guys do, and how you help CISOs and security teams for enterprises?
Dasera is a data security platform. What it does really is it automates data security and governance controls. And we focus on databases, data lakes, and data warehouses, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. What sets us apart is the way we think about data security. If you look at the space of data security, which is most of it's about posture. So it covers a little bit of infrastructure, it covers data from classification, discovery and classification, it covers a little bit of data users, but that's where the journey stops. Where Dasera stands apart is our ability to monitor data in use. So what we do is we take whatever is in DSPM, we cover all of that, and then we have added a tool which allows companies to actually see how data is used after access is given. And that changes the complete equation, because imagine that you are thinking about a city and you're trying to figure out, let's say, a city in India or in Italy where the traffic is a little more chaotic, and you're only checking for brakes and colors of cars and whether they have a windshield, but you do not actually understand how the drivers drive there. That is what is happening in data security. Everybody's talking about the static pieces, but the actual thing when data is used is not looked at properly. So Dasera's background, actually, we started at UC Berkeley with research there. So over the last 6 years, we have developed a query analysis tool that can understand the interaction with data across the entire company. And then we take those insights and push it back into the upstream things like users, like data itself, and the infrastructure.
That's awesome. So thanks, Ani, for providing that overview about Dasera. So I want to dive into some of these challenges that you're seeing out there. So what challenges in the cybersecurity space that are you specifically solving? I know you mentioned a few to start, and what environments do you currently support?
Yeah, so we are one of the companies that are the new age companies. If you think about generationally, data security initially was just DLP, and then it transformed a little bit. And currently, I think I would put it at a third generation company in terms of data security. And the platforms that most third generation companies support is cloud only. But what we realized is that we cover both cloud as well as on-prem. And the reason why we do that is from a customer's perspective, it's all data. It just happens to be on-prem or in the cloud. And so we've created this continuum, which allows them to have the same controls for whatever is on-prem or whatever is in the cloud or is going through a transformation. So it would be all of the commercial databases. This could be native to companies, like we support BigQuery from GCP, we support Synapse from Azure, we support Redshift and S3 from AWS, but we also support specialized platforms like Snowflake and Databricks and any others that you can think about. As far as the on-prem is concerned, there's Oracle, like there are plenty of those. Additionally, for a certain size of customers, we are able to write additional connectors in a couple of weeks or so. If there are databases that we don't cover, we are able to get our sidecar to work in those environments in a couple of weeks.
So there's no surprise here that risks, threats, hacks, they all continue to rise significantly each year. So I bet our audience would love to know how Dasera's platform has produced and produced results, specifically securing sensitive data, so that organizations are, they're able to do their day to day and make better business decisions.
That's a great question, Connor. And the answer to this is not simple. Data security is not going to transform in a day. It's going to take all of us, and it's going to take a long time. Because in data security or any form of security, you have the defender's dilemma, which is you have a broad front to protect, and where do you put resources? Because as far as hackers are concerned, they have to get in just once. Now, however, inside of that, if you just look at the data associated with hacking and breaches, 83% of breaches are external players, which basically means that 17% are internal. So 1 out of 5 is internal, right? The second insight is, of that 83% outsiders, 74% involve a human element, which means they are taking over credentials or they're doing some social engineering to get access. So even in the remaining, so if you say 2/3 of that 83%, it's roughly 21%. So you add, you just take out 21%. So 80% is going to involve something to do with humans. It will involve data. It will involve the infrastructure. So the only way to fix that is by doing data in use monitoring. That is, once access is given, how are people using it? The way Dasera works on this is through the query analysis engine that can analyze the intent and behavior of queries. And why is it important? It is important because the language with which we speak with data is a query. It's a SQL or a SQL-like query. And once you can predict what it is going to return, your chances of stopping a breach or looking for abnormal behavior goes up tremendously. And that's what actually changes it. We call it a keystone technology because it holds everything together. Most companies that are today in DSPM do not have this keystone technology in terms of understanding how data is actually used. They have to look at network data. They have to look at rerun queries if necessary. We don't have to do any of that stuff.
So I want to bring up something I thought it was really interesting. In your most recent case study with Omada Healthcare, one of the challenges that they faced was, with their 41 billion sensitive records, by the way, was efficiency. And so I want to know, could you walk us through perhaps how Dasera improved this process, specifically around efficiency, and how the team was able to cut time and focus on fixing the critical issues?
That's again a great question, Connor. So the way to think about it is, because data continues to grow and you still have the same number of people who are given the responsibility of protecting that data, you have to think about automation, right? Automation starts, you can only automate something that you can see, something where you can put some rules, and then you automate. And so what we do with customers, including with Omada, is our ability to go discover where your data is, what data it is. We automatically tag it. For example, classification is quasi-automatic across the industry, and automatic tagging hasn't caught up yet. And so we are able to first do that. So that gives them full visibility. Then we have created a policy engine that is in plain English. You can say if this, then that, without having to create all technical parameters. What you can say is that if I see PII data in a certain infrastructure, go do this, right? And the platform, Dasera, is going to take care of that automatically. And then the next layer, what we have done is that we have connected any alerts into an existing workflow that a company may have. So in the case of Omada, the CISO, Bill, he's been one of our early customers. He's been phenomenal. His team has worked with us to take us to where we are. So we are very thankful. We were at a panel discussion, and he basically provided this insight. He said, what used to take me 2 weeks and a few people to go to previously now takes me 5 minutes on my own. And that just shows the power of the platform. And this is not a single story. We have seen this play out in multiple customers in multiple industries. I think we have a very, very meaningful solution that can be used in many places.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great case study too. So another really cool thing I want to bring up too from Dasera was I want to talk a little bit about the Red Book series, which I really find fascinating, and I know that it's real world advice on tackling insider threats, but it's also really cool that it's written by those who are leading the charge, the security leaders out there. So can you talk a little bit about the Red Book series and perhaps where it came from?
Sure. So my co-founder Noah Johnson and I, we started thinking about this idea in mid 2019. As part of the research, and we continue to do that, we met about 100 data professionals, some in security and some in data. And what we realized as we were speaking with them, and my background, Noah's background is he is from academia. He's a PhD from UC Berkeley. My background is multiple startups in and around data as well as McKinsey. So you can imagine an academic meets a consultant, both having technical backgrounds, and then you have a solution. And so when we interviewed all of these people, we realized that there was an ocean of knowledge, right? What we wanted to do in the spirit of open sourcing was, can we take all of this learning and open source it? Can we open it up so people can learn from all of that? Because yes, there is some level of collaboration as far as data security is concerned, but I think because of data security specifically, it's a slightly specialized field. And here is why. If you think about general security, it is more IT centric. Data security is more about business context and compliance centric, right? And so what we did was we learned a lot from these people. We put it together in a book and we published it. And so now what we are doing is we are beginning to go deeper, and you will soon see the second book of the series.
Oh, that's awesome. We're looking forward to it, and I know we'll make sure it's accessible to those who are listening in. You mentioned something already, which leads me to my next question. Ani, is compliance, and it's as important in security teams and organizations as anything else. So, how does Dasera continuously prevent and detect this, data compliance violations throughout the data infrastructure?
That's again a great question, and there is an insight that people don't realize. So when you talk to most people, people will say regulated industries like healthcare and financial services, right? What people don't realize is that based on what the federal government has, and all 50 states have actually implemented some form of regulation for US consumers. So every industry is regulated. Some are more deeply regulated than others. So compliance is everywhere. The interesting thing is, because compliance started in bits and pieces, the solutions that serve compliance also work in bits and pieces. No matter how big those company names are, no matter what their size is, they are still a bits and pieces player, right? Now, compliance does not complete security, but security completes compliance, right? And herein lies the twist, which is if you can secure your data properly and you can collect up all of the reports and prove that you have secured it, it becomes compliant, right? And that is how we think about compliance, which is they come together. If you have good governance, which is good hygiene, the overhead in compliance, the overhead in security drops as well. And so that's why if you think about Dasera, it's an automated data security and governance platform. We are able to do multiple things together.
Excellent. And so another interesting question I have for you, Ani, is that, it's a number of companies, especially growing growing companies, they may not have a complete 360 view into their data infrastructure, and this isn't news. It happens to a lot of companies. So how does Dasera guide the customers and the companies that you're working with now to really ensure that they have the right data life cycle and the right security in place?
Yeah. So again, if you think about the data lifecycle, it's got different components. It's got the infrastructure, it's got data users, and it's got data usage. Because of the nature of security products, I wouldn't say best in class, but great in class for each point product. Smaller companies and larger companies all struggle to connect these point products. Now imagine there is a platform that covers the entire data lifecycle, right? And you enter in one place in a single platform. If you're single cloud, multi-cloud, if you've got Snowflake, you can bring them all under one umbrella, automatically classify and tag all of your data, connect your directory services like Active Directory, Ping, or Okta, and figure out who are the users, which DB users are not connected to a directory service, which means these are orphan DB users. You don't know who's using those. And then you're able to look at every single query that has been run. You have this holistic view. For smaller companies, they don't have the resources, and they may know what they need to do, but the tool set has been missing. And what Dasera does is that it can meet a customer wherever they are. If you don't have anything, Dasera can come and help you. If you've got some pieces that are disjointed, Dasera can fill in the gaps and connect them all.
Well said, Ani. And I think there's a couple of questions I'm sure that some CISOs would have, and it's probably around how can organizations really leverage this data in use monitoring and risk analysis to improve data security and risk management in hybrid cloud environments, and perhaps what are the benefits of doing so, and secondly, how well do organizations address unique security today, and perhaps for other compliance challenges that they're facing?
Sure. So when you think about Microsoft as a company, right, they have Azure, and their solutions are focused on in their world. If you think of Amazon, AWS has got some products that support their platforms, which is Redshift and S3. When you think of Google, it's the same story, right? For a team that has got multi-cloud, you need to normalize all of this. You need to make sure that you create a rule one place, it works across the board. That's what Dasera does. We go into an environment, we say, okay, what are the most important things for you? Okay, that's your data. What type of data is it? So we automatically classify it. Then we say, okay, what compliance frameworks do you need to support? Is it CCPA, GDPR, HIPAA, whatever it is, we automatically tag that. We then go connect with your directory service. We make a list of who's in the US, who's overseas, what teams are they part of. And so that gives us a landscape of where the data is, who's touching it, what is their purpose. On top of that, then there's a policy engine. So we ship with a few canned policies already. So you can tweak them, you can modify them, you can write your own. And so once that is done, then we connect it with a workflow that exists. So if you have a service now, or if you've got, if you want to fire up Jira tickets, you're using Slack, or somebody has to be emailed, all of that happens in a single place. And so we are able to create this air traffic control like environment where you have got these planes landing, you've got planes taking off, and how do you make sure that the taxis are running properly from a single place? That's what Dasera is able to do.
That's excellent. And, I'm learning so much already. And as well, I'm sure our audience is too. I want to end the podcast on some of the capabilities that automation can have, and how can these automation technologies help organizations detect, mitigate potential data misuse or leaks, really that efficiency, and quick response time. how can they improve incident response times and reduce that risk of the data breach? And perhaps why Dasera really does stand out as that solution.
Great question, Connor. So number one is that efficiency starts with deployment, which is if it is going to take months and months to deploy, and then it's going to take months and months to put the policies in place, and then it takes an army of people to chase after every single alert, it's never going to happen. It's always going to be best effort. At Dasera, a couple of things that we did. Number one is the deployment is super easy. For example, we are going to be at the Snowflake Summit, right? At the Snowflake Summit, we are releasing something called Ski Lift. So what Ski Lift does is that if you are a Snowflake customer, you get a season pass for 45 days using Dasera. You basically pre-register, we give you access, you can put in your username and password from Snowflake, and it will automatically classify and tag all of your data and give you the vulnerabilities. The second thing, in terms of that same passage, and you were talking about how does it help, the second one is if you can take away the commodity work that data owners and security people have to do. So for example, classification is commodity work, tagging is commodity work. If you can reduce it to a point where they just have to take care of the top 1%, that they can review the top 1% because everything is automated, the quality of their work is going to go up. The motivation of the teams will go up. And that applies to alerts as well. When you've got 10,000 alerts, nothing is getting done. And so imagine if I could take away 95% of alerts because we have seen them before, understand them, and there is automated remediation. So then security professionals are only dealing with the top 5%. You have more motivated teams doing quality work instead of trying to do commodity work. And I think that automation is the only way that we will be able to secure things. And we are heavily invested in that. We've got AI built into our query analysis engine that tells you the risk automatically again. Those are the tools, and we work with customers to understand what they're trying to achieve. Dasera is a starting point for them, and then we work with them to complete that journey.
This has been a great journey as far as a podcast goes. Ani, thank you so much for sharing the knowledge and all the capabilities, talking about Dasera and the platform, keeping data safe and compliant, and providing that broader access and making businesses work better. And of course, and thanks for giving us a little insight about the red book of insider threats. That's really cool. I want to make sure and thank our cybersecurity audience out there, and we'll make sure that everybody can have a little bit of access to Dasera and know a little bit more about the platform and all the great work that they do there. So, Ani, and thank you for joining Millennium Live and talking all through this, and we'll hope to see you soon in the future.
Thank you so much, Connor. It's great to be here. Bye.